Alright, what's going on, guys? Coming at you with a heavy topic today. I'm going to be talking about my review of the Trials of Gabriel Fernandez. I just finished the show, and I gotta say, it was incredible. It was a lot better than I think the Aaron Hernandez trial and the story, which I watched a couple weeks ago. But this was about a young boy. And if you're on this video, guys, you're going to get some spoilers. So just tune in for that. So if you don't want to see that, back out now. But yeah, it's about an 8-year-old boy who got tortured. And I can probably say it is the worst, the worst story of any trial, any murder trial that I've ever heard of in my life. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it. There was a book called A Child Called It. Oh, there's some Prince Harry stuff. A Child Called It, and that's honestly like the first thing I thought of when I saw this. It reminded me of a lot of things from that book, and I remember it's been a long. I read that book when I was in high school, but it reminded me a lot about that. Some of this, just crazy things. They laughed when they were hitting him. They made him, eat cat litter. Um, there was also allegations that the mom's boyfriend was trying to beat him because he was gay. And he was raised by his gay uncles. And that's the thing about this case that I found the most puzzling. The uncles took care of him, and he was, perfect. He was, a normal kid growing up. And then I think, people didn't like that they were gay, so they had to give him up. And you get to hear from the uncles, which is kind of heartbreaking because they took him home when he was 2 days old from the hospital. Like, I have a son, like a 2 day old baby, and these two men decide that they're going to take him in. Like, the decision to do that, is incredible. And then they lost custody of him. So the grandparents get custody, and then eventually the mom, Pearl, and her boyfriend, which I guess the boyfriend never had custody, but the mom. But the show, guys, it focuses on the trial of the boyfriend for this guy right here, Israel Aguirre. Don't know if I'm saying that right, but it involves the whole show involves around Gabriel's death, the case, the details, and this guy right here. Um, and you hear a lot about what he did to him. He choked him. The craziest thing for me, and it goes back to like the Child Called It. They made him sleep in like a cupboard, like underneath like a drawer. Pretty much is what he slept in, a little bitty cubicle box. And back to like A Child Called It. Like that was like the only time I'd ever heard of anything like that was from a book that I read. Um, and it's just crazy to me that you know the system failed him. I mean, we've seen the system fail others before, but especially an 8-year-old kid, who just um, just wasn't given a chance. And the thing with me is with this kid, um, that I think is so bad is that he grew up, with these uncles. He didn't know like what abuse was. He didn't know, what his life was to come. So imagine going from, having these uncles that love you, going to grandparents that loved you, and then all of a sudden you're getting beat and you're getting locked up and you're not eating, you're not getting fed, you're using the bathroom on yourself. And it's kind of crazy to even go to a place to think like what he went through in just a short amount of time because it was only like an 8-month time span that he even lived with his mom. But back, just talking about the show, I definitely think Pearl Fernandez, she was the mastermind behind it all. One of the jurors kept talking about that he didn't think that Israel Aguirre was, that evil. He more or less blamed it on the mom, and which I do think the mom was. I mean, it's her son. I think she was definitely the mastermind behind it all. But I mean, you're beating up an 8-year-old. I mean, you got some evil in you. I mean, that's just the way I see it. And in the case, it goes down, and I think one of the most surprising things, and I think it might have been for a lot of people in the courtroom, was when Gabriel's older brother and older sister, maybe younger sister, had to testify in court. And they, a woman reads you, they can't show you them actually testifying in court because they're minors, but they do show you, what they said, and they pretty much to hear it from a 15-year-old kid talking about his experiences and talking about them choking him and beating him and locking him up. Like, to me, I bet that was, was a big shock in the courtroom. You're hearing it coming from these adults, you're hearing it coming from these lawyers, but then when you hear it coming out of, children's mouths, like what they had to see, like that trauma that they had to go through, just really amazing. And then we get to see at the end, which I thought was kind of a shock. They end up getting the death sentence on um, Israel Aguirre, and then the mom Pearl. She just takes a plea deal for life in prison. So you get to see his trial, and I'm glad they came to the decision that they did, because I just sometimes I'm a little iffy on the death penalty, but in this case, there was, if I'd have been on that trial, I mean, I would have done the same thing. But one curveball at the end is you get this other kid just a few weeks later. You get this Noah Carartos kid, and it's like the same town, like a couple weeks after Gabriel's trial, um, and it was a 4-year-old, and the same situation, a mom and a boyfriend. I wanted to look this up to get more into it because they don't tell you a lot, but it just says this kid, he was 4 years old when he died, July 5th, 2018. So this is more recent. 28-year-old and 26-year-old accused of torturing him for a period of 4 months. Both parents were indicted last month on murder and torture charges. In addition to those charges, Juarez also faces one count of child abuse under circumstances likely to cause death, one count of assault causing death, and sexual penetration. So there was actually the dad or the boyfriend or whatever he is, was sexually assaulting this 4-year-old. Of course, the district attorney, DCS, all of them, just, they won't answer any questions. They think, I guess keeping quiet is going to make it better, but to me, it's not. People are just going to want to know why you're not saying anything. He was raised by another relative, just like Gabriel was. He was then put in his parents' care for about a year before he was removed from the home for neglect. And then his parents got back custody, so he actually got taken out of his parents' custody and then gave back to them, which is kind of insane. So a lot of similarities between this case and Gabriel's. Filed a multi-dollar damage claim. But yeah, I mean, just right after that, you get another case. Right after. And all these people, the lawyer, man, I loved him. I love the lawyer in the show. He was great. He was probably my favorite character. My favorite person on this documentary was the lawyer. He was just really, firm in the way he went about ways. He wasn't, manipulative. He was just about getting the facts. He wasn't trying to, create this big story, this big drama. He just went after the facts, and I think he did a good job in the case. And of course, he led to getting the death penalty. But definitely one of the harder shows that I've had to watch. I can say that. So if you have not seen it yet, it is tough to watch. The last thing I want to say before I wrap this up, there was another interesting thing going on in the trials of Gabriel Fernandez is the social workers. The DA's attorney office actually went after the social workers. There was 4 of them, and they were trying to say that they had plenty of chances that they could have saved his life. And the thing with me is, some of them I think maybe didn't know, as much as some others, and I think some did know more than others. I think some of them probably should have been punished. But the thing that really stuck out to me was the teacher. This teacher called 4 times. 4 times this teacher called. I think she probably called more than that. And was talking to it was the younger woman, and they put it on the low risk case or something like that. I just thought that was absurd. You got this teacher, basically just seeing him die over a course of months, and this teacher is continually calling, and like you don't go to the school, you don't ask questions. Like to me, it was just the neglect of the social workers. Like, how do you not go ask a teacher, that's called and called and called? I am a teacher, so I mean, I kind of know like I don't know what that teacher went through with this, but I've heard about cases and things like that where you have to report, and a teacher's not going to call 5 times if she doesn't think anything's going on. I mean, and the fact that she kept calling, because I was like, oh man, she'll stop after this time. Like that was my thinking. I was like, okay, she'll call once and then she'll stop. She'll call once and then she'll stop. And then she was afraid that Gabriel would get beat worse when social workers were showing up at the house. And that even through that, she still called. Like I thought maybe she called once or twice, but she kept calling and kept calling, and still nothing was done. But yeah, so nothing ended up happening to the social workers. But the mom did get life for without no parole, and Ariel is on death row in San Quentin. But yeah, I'm gonna look up some more about this other case, Noah Guarito. Don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'm gonna look up some more. But guys, I've had a lot of people comment on my videos talking about it. Let me know what you think. Do you think the social workers? I think some. My opinion, one of the social workers should have went down. I mean, one of them, I think, had the information out there, especially who was receiving phone calls from the teacher. I think that's more than enough of them neglecting their job. Do you think somebody should have went down for it? Um, do you agree with the death case penalty in this case? That's just kind of like a moral standpoint. Your personal preference. I don't think there's really a right or a wrong in which way you believe. People just believe different. In this case, I do think I think they both deserve the death penalty. But let me know in the comments below, guys. Let's keep this going. Just spread awareness. About these type of things. And if you ever see anything like this going on, guys, you can't be that person to sit there and think, well, somebody else will call, somebody else will do this. You got to be that person to make that decision. To possibly make an impact in someone else's life. But I appreciate the comments that we've been getting on my trailer, guys. Hopefully we get some more in here, get some good conversations going. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.